Hello, my name is Varsha Shah, and today we'll be talking to Rachel Bremnes about fall prevention. She's from an organization called Trellis. Rachel is a senior provider relationship manager. In this role, Rachel manages the provider network for the Juniper Community Care Hub, which offers classes for wellness and fall prevention. She's a trained Tai Chi Chuan, moving for better balance instructor, and a master trainer for the Matter of Balance Fall Prevention Program. So, welcome, Rachel, to our podcast. Just if you want to introduce yourself, just tell us a little bit about your background and how you became involved in the area of fall prevention.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me today, Varsha. I'm actually a social worker by background. And when I first started out in my career, I was working one-on-one with elders, with older adults. And in my role, I was happened to be talking to a lot of people that were making moves to assisted living when maybe they weren't wanting to because they had recently had a fall and hadn't recovered well, and now they needed some additional help. Or maybe they were just worried about falling and they wanted to make a move into senior housing to have someone there to help them if they were to fall. And just hearing so many of these people talking about how they would prefer to age in their home got me wondering, what can we do that would be a little bit further upstream to help people? So that led me to Juniper and our evidence-based programs, where we're trying to help provide people with some information to boost their confidence around preventing falls so they can age where they want to.
Sure, sure. That sounds incredible. Um, why do you think fall prevention is such an important issue, especially in the older adults? And what age does this typically seem to start becoming a problem for people?
Yes, I think we talk about it so much because falls have a bigger impact when we are over 65 than when we're in our 30s or 40s. There tends to be more medical consequences. They tend to be more injurious falls, require hospitalizations. And so we track it because it has a really big impact on the lives of the population. We know that about 1 in 4 older adults fall each year, and now those are reported falls. And I don't know about you, Varsha, but I have fallen and I haven't reported it. So I'm pretty sure that that number is higher than 1 in 4.
Yeah.
Those are just the ones we know about, and that's pretty striking. So, and we start talking about this as far as the age that this is seen as a problem. I think we start talking about this after people turn 65, because that's culturally what America considers to be an elder, because that's when you qualify for Medicare. That's people
Mhm.
start taking Social Security benefits around that time. But I think some of the circumstances, the lifestyle impacts that lead to a fall begin much earlier than 65.
Okay. Would you say that's in your 50s, even 40s, or more towards early 60s?
I would say, so I'm in my 30s, and when I'm talking about lifestyle choices, I'm thinking specifically about exercise and the impact that exercise and strength training has on your life. And I'm in my 30s, and all of my friends and siblings are in our 30s, and we have different exercise habits. And I'm starting to see differences in mobility and strength and endurance even now. So I think
Oh.
having exercise as part of your lifestyle is really positive in helping to reduce the risk of falls. And starting the earlier that you start that, the more muscle you have built up to take you into your elder season of life.
Sure. Um, why, I guess, what are the most common causes of falls in adults and how do we recognize the early risk factors?
Absolutely. So one that, I mean, obviously I've already spoken about exercise. So poor leg strength is an important factor or cause of falls. And some things to pay attention to that people might not even realize is, are you having a difficult time climbing stairs? Do you have to really hold on to the handrail to help move your body up the stairs? Do you have a difficult time stepping up on a curb? Can you get up out of a chair without using your arms? All of those, if you're not able to do it, it could be a sign of weakening legs, which can be a contributing factor to falls. Another one is just overall balance. So are you holding on to furniture as you're walking through your home or walking through community spaces to help you stay upright? That's a subtle sign that you might have some balance concerns. Other factors are, of course, dizziness. The root cause of that can be dehydration, medication side effects, or even hearing problems. Changes in vision also have an impact, of course, so cataracts, glaucoma, or even worsening vision as we get older. One people don't always think about is foot pain. One, because it can just impact how your body, how your feet are able to sense changes in terrain and how you're able to respond, but also it impacts your mobility. So when we're experiencing pain, we aren't going to be as active because we're in pain when we move, when we're
Mhm.
up and walking. So we're
Yep.
going to tend to restrict our movements. And as a result, that can lead to muscle weakness and a loss of balance over time.
I see. Yeah, I guess that awareness thing, I think I'm gonna have to watch out even for myself, right? Like where am I losing balance? Or like you said, even climbing stairs, if you're having to hold rails, just little things like that when you start going into your 50s. Um, what are most effective steps that people can take to reduce their fall risk? I know you talked about exercise already, but any specific types or anything else?
Yeah, absolutely. So annual vision checks are really important. Vision changes can be really subtle over time. And if we having an annual vision check allows you to keep a good pulse on that and to get appropriate prescription lenses as needed. Some people will say schedule your annual vision check on your birthday so you remember. I don't think that's a lot of fun. I think birthdays should be saved for fun things. So I say half birthday, schedule it on your half birthday. Um, and then having smart lighting in your home so that when I say that, I don't mean it has to be connected to an app or have any sort of artificial intelligence, but having a light switch in every room as you enter it. So you can turn on the light as you're entering the room so you can see. Having light switches at the top and the bottom of the stairs and using those lights as well. So many of us, I grew up, my father's an electrician. He was adamant, we have to save electricity. And it felt like I would no sooner walk into a room and turn on a light that he would be yelling at me to turn it off because we have to save electricity. But I
Sure,
find I run into far fewer things if I can see where I'm going. So I think the electricity to have the light on is a small price to pay in order to make sure that we're a little bit safer.
sure.
Um, Another important one is just taking your time. So every time that I have fallen or slipped or bumped into something, it's always because I'm rushing. So I'm
Mhm.
not paying attention to how my body is moving in space, how my feet are landing on the steps or the ground or the flooring, where my center of balance is, because I'm rushing and I'm focused on the thing I need to do, whether it's getting to the phone or answering the door. So slowing down and taking our time is also really important so that we can pay attention to our balance. That doesn't mean we have to move in slow motion. It just means moving at a nice normal pace.
Sure, sure. That makes sense. Um, so can you share some exercises or habits that will help with, things like our balance, strength, coordination? Um, if you can provide any links or any sites or just any verbal instructions.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So exercise, I strongly believe is one of the best things we can do for fall prevention. And the best exercise program is the one that you'll do. So the one that resonates with you that you enjoy. And it doesn't
Hmm.
need to be super long. Even just 30 minutes a day can be beneficial. Exercises that incorporate some sort of strength training are better, and some sort of a balance component are better. But even gardening, mowing the lawn, going for a 30-minute walk every day is beneficial. And when I say mowing the lawn, I don't mean a riding lawnmower, I mean a push mower, just to be clear.
Sure.
Um, the and there's lots of places where you can get these these exercises. Uh, Many health insurance programs offer exercise programs for seniors. Most commonly, they're known as like Silver Sneakers or Silver Fit. There's also Renew Active and One Pass that's available through your health plan, where you can either go to a local health club and take classes there or exercise on your own, or you can work out online with videos that they have. Many in every state, there are area agencies on aging, and they have funding for evidence-based health promotion programs. So that's what we offer in Minnesota with Juniper, our evidence-based health promotion program. So these are programs that have been tested in a clinical and a community setting and found to have a positive outcome on fall prevention or on general health and well-being. And we offer those programs in the community. So for Juniper in Minnesota, our website is yourjuniper.org, and we have classes online and in person. And we do have some classes available by phone, but not the exercise classes, because that would be a little complicated to do, of course.
Sure.
Uh, but the even classes can be found on YouTube. Sometimes there are local exercise programs happening through your community ed department, through your county park system. There's lots of ways to get involved with exercise.
Okay. So I know a lot of people, you mentioned 30 minutes of walk and then they consider that to be their exercise. And I think what I heard you say is that's not necessarily, it's good, but it's not enough, right? Okay.
Yeah. It's good. It's good. It is good. And
Yeah.
everyone needs to start somewhere, right? If you tell the
Right.
person who isn't exercising at all that they need to sign up for a 1 hour boot camp every day, that's a really big change for them.
Sure.
Um, so 30 minutes of walking every day, that's an awesome baseline. That's a great place to get started. I would definitely encourage something around strength training as
Okay.
well, just to build up those muscles.
Yeah. And then, for those of us who are caregivers, what role do family members or caregivers or healthcare providers play in supporting fall preventions?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked this question, Varsha, because I know from leading our classes that one of the things that people worry about, that elders worry about, is if I talk to my healthcare provider or my family member about my worry about falling, are they going to think I can't live on my own? Are they going to think I need to move? Are they going to think I can no longer do for myself? So there's a real fear that if they open up, they're people are going to think that they aren't as independent when they are independent. They're just noticing, they're responsibly noticing that they need some help with certain things, and they are asking for that help. So I think
Mhm.
one of one really powerful way to be supportive as a family member, healthcare provider, or caregiver is when somebody starts talking about this, when an elder starts talking about concerns about falls, to really listen, because it takes a lot of courage for them to even bring it up a little bit, even the smallest mention. It takes a
Mhm.
lot of courage for them to bring it up. So really being attentive to that, and listening deeply and working alongside them to figure out how to employ the solutions that they want to help reduce their risk of a fall.
Sure. Good point. Are there any surprising or lesser known contributors to falls beyond just aging or physical weakness, like you mentioned, the legs give out and things like that? Are there anything else that to watch out for?
There's a really interesting one, actually. it's been found that a fear of falling contributes to being at a higher risk for falling, which is super interesting. And
Mm-hmm.
but it also makes sense because if you're worried about falling, the the story that we tell ourselves in our head, if I'm worried about falling, it's human, it's natural. We think, well, I'm going to stay home. I'm worried about falling, so I'm not going to go to that grad party at my nephew's house because I haven't been there before and I don't know if they have stairs and I'm worried about falling. Um, or I'm not going to go to the the farmer's market with my neighbor because I haven't been there before and I'm not sure how far we're going to have to walk from the parking lot to the farmer's market and I'm worried about falling. So when there's that fear, what it results in a restriction of activity, which does and it ends up playing in it ends up turning into I'm not as active, so I lose muscle strength, balance,
Mm-hmm.
and endurance as a result of that because I'm kind of turned into a homebody. I don't go out very much. And and that's something that I think people don't think about. And that's also as a caregiver, if if someone is worried about falling and in those scenarios I described where maybe I get invited to a nephew's house for a graduation party, and it would be so helpful if someone would say, oh, do you want to go to the house beforehand and just see what it looks like? Or would it be helpful if I describe to you what their house, what the layout of the house is, so you can anticipate it? And maybe we go early when there aren't a lot of people there. So you have
Mm-hmm.
time to navigate the stairs. Um, or the other scenario with the farmer's market, maybe suggesting, what if I call ahead and see if there's a place where I could drop you off and I'll go park the car and then come back and we'll go to the market together.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so helping to combat that fear by shifting the situation from I can't do that because I'm worried about falling to I am worried about falling. That fear is not going to go away on its own, but what can I do to make myself more comfortable?
Sure, sure. Um, it's interesting, some of the things you're telling us in here, like slowing down, listening, to our elders, um, combating our fears, all these things that our community is very much aware of. We hear this from our guides, just from a spiritual perspective all the time. So it's great to hear that some of the same things here on for the fall prevention as well. So Rachel, are there any other factors like home setup or anything else that you can think of that play a role in the fall risk?
Absolutely. So thinking about the home setup, one thing that we want to be really mindful of is having secure flooring. So making sure all of our flooring is nice and flat and secure. We don't have throw rugs that are sliding around when we step on them. Also removing clutter, so not having things cluttering up the stairs or extension cords running throughout the house that could be tripping hazards, not having too much furniture where there aren't clear paths of travel through a space. Something else that we don't always think about with the home environment too are pets, because do you have any pets, Varsha?
I do not.
You don't?
No.
I don't either, but my mother-in-law has two Shih Tzus that are the
Uh,
same color of her carpet, and guess where they always like to be? They, they always like to be underfoot. Always, always. They want to be where the people are.
Yeah,
And it's stressful in a way because we don't want to trip on the dogs and hurt them, and we also don't want to trip and hurt ourselves.
sure.
So I know I said this earlier, but taking our time, that's really important with animals around too, so that we can just be mindful of where they are at in the home, whether it's our home or one that we're visiting. And one thing that I haven't mentioned yet, but I would be remiss not to, are medications and medication side effects.
Okay.
It it doesn't take long. What I've heard is it only takes four medications, and that could be over the counter medication, prescription, herbal remedy or a supplement, four of those in combination where you could start seeing some sort of side effects. And that will vary depending on the what you're taking, of course. But sometimes those side effects are kind of sneaky, and we don't even realize that we have this feeling of dizziness and that it might be related to the medications because it just sneaks up on us. So really utilizing our pharmacists and our healthcare providers to talk about anything that we might be feeling or experiencing as far as a side effect, because while it might not feel like such a big deal to us in that moment, it could turn into a bigger problem. And oftentimes there's something that our healthcare team can do as far as maybe changing the dosage a little bit or switching us to a different medication so that we
Mhm.
have the same benefit, but we aren't experiencing those side effects.
Sure, that makes sense. I think I've experienced that with my father. Um,
Mhm.
Also, how important are like footwear or any assistive equipment? What roles do they play in fall prevention?
Yeah, footwear is very important, as is assistive equipment. So with footwear, we always want to make sure that we are wearing shoes that are staying on our feet securely. So that has a front, it has a back, something covering our heel. Anything that's like a slip-on slipper or sandal. What
Hmm.
I found with myself, and maybe I'm an anomaly, but when I wear those shoes, I tend to grip my toes to try to keep them on. Those sandals, those slip-on sandals and slip-on slippers tend to fall off my feet and
Hmm.
become more of a hindrance than a help when it comes to walking. And so I always recommend wearing instead of a slip-on slipper or sandal, something that straps on, that has something covering our toes and something covering our heel. So it's nice and secure. And we don't need to worry about whether that shoe is going to stay on our foot.
Sure.
And as far as the assistive equipment, so like canes or walkers, sometimes people feel like using a cane or a walker is a sign of I'm not as independent as I once was, or kind of telling the world, well, I am worried about my balance now, so I'm going to use this. So it's seen as a negative light. And I would encourage people to think about that a little bit differently, because sometimes those devices are really needed and they can be helpful to help us continue the things that we like to do. And I have a story about that, and the story is about my grandfather, George. So my grandfather, he lived to be 100, but when he was in his early 90s and my grandmother was still living, she was in a nursing home and he was living at home still.
Mm.
And he would go visit her basically every day. He'd visit her for lunch and sneak lots of M&Ms to her when the nurses were looking. And so I don't know how that helped her sugar levels, but it's anyway, that's a sign. So you'd visit her every day, but as he got older, he started to have some experience leg weakness, and he had type 2 diabetes, and he was experiencing neuropathy and pain and loss of sensation in his feet. So he became very uncomfortable walking.
Mhm.
And as a result, he stopped visiting my grandma. He wasn't visiting her every day because he wasn't comfortable going on his own and walking. And many family members suggested to him, well, why don't you use a cane or why don't you use a walker? Because then you
Mhm.
would feel more comfortable and confident. And he said, no, 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 I can't do that because I don't want that perception that I'm less independent. But what ended up happening is he was less independent because he didn't go anywhere. He was home all the time. So
Sure.
when he finally did become comfortable and agree to start using the cane and the walker, it made him more independent because then he could go visit my grandmother again or go to church or go to the store with confidence that he was going to feel stable and secure walking.
Yeah, never thought about that, but yes, that makes sense. Rachel, if you could leave our listeners with one key takeaway when it comes to preventing falls, what would that be?
Yeah, so I'm going to challenge everyone's thinking a little bit with my final takeaway, because my final takeaway is that falls are not a normal part of aging. they're common among older adults, but they're
Okay.
not a normal part of aging in the same way that developing wrinkles or gray hair is a normal part of aging.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and that's good news because that it does mean that there's things that can be done to prevent a fall. And and we can feel empowered around that and feel action oriented around writing the story for what we want our elderhood to look like
Mm-hmm.
and taking action steps to help make that story come to life through some of the things that we've talked about today.
Sure. Wow. I think that's pretty powerful because a lot of times we feel helpless, like some things are totally out of our control, right? When we age. And
Mhm.
so I'm really happy to hear that, yeah, there are things that we can do to sort of avoid that. It's not just necessarily natural in every single individual. So thank you so much, Rachel, for your time today. This was very helpful and it was awesome talking to you. If you have any resources to share as far as online links or whatnot, feel free to send that to us and then we'll post it along with this podcast.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Take care. Have a good one.
You too.